How do we invest in these things that are so important? That's what we're here for. That's what Supercharged Stocks does, and that's what we're building. It's taking advantage of a lot of noise and a lot of chaos and focusing your attention, thinking critically, and applying it towards the market. Good morning, everyone. Many greetings. Apologies for yesterday. I guess with StreamYard, they must have a relationship, but they're also definitely interconnected with Facebook and everything else. We've got them linked all together. And with Facebook being down, there's nothing happening. We were just disconnected.
Yeah, nothing we could do. Couldn't go live. Just we had a lot of good things going. We just had to share them with each other and not with everybody else. So.
Yes, it was very, very sad. But anyways, lesson learned. I mean, these things can happen. What an interesting day, though. I'm going to leave that alone because the conspiracy theories were flying, although I hate that term. But, there's lots of discussion as to what that was. And it's all interesting. We'll see. We'll see. In any event, we're back on. We're live. We'll talk about some of the things we wanted to chat about yesterday, a few updates. Some of the interesting head-scratching things like, the desperate need for coal, which people don't want to hear, don't like to say. Some of the things happening in Venezuela, if we want to look to see what our possible future holds, if we go down a ludicrous path of what some people want to see. But also just touch on, some of the more middle of the road, what we can hope we see in the future. And once again, we try to stay a bit more optimistic and hopeful about things of here. So let's jump in. Austin, do we have any updates of companies that just kind of give a shout out?
Yeah, a couple of really quick updates, some exciting news coming out. People who have been paying attention recently will know that we've really gotten into the gaming space. We love this company, Royal Winds, and what they're doing. Really cool update for them. They've launched the new version of their app, which includes a couple of new games. It's going to have the larger game developers working on it, access to kind of bigger markets. So that's really cool. It's just basically like a content patch for any video game where you update with a newer version. So this one's just got a couple extra games. The app runs a little smoother, a little cleaner, and it's going to be geared towards kind of making players return better. So keeping players playing after they've already signed up and played a couple of games, and then maybe, I've done that before. You got a game on your phone, you put it down, and then okay, I've played that. Maybe I'll check out again in a month or something like that. So it's geared towards returning players and keeping them engaged, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, and once again, it's a game of skill, but you get to make some money. I mean, it's fun. I mean, I think it's early for a lot of people to see this space, but the potential size, I don't think anyone would have a hard problem realizing the size and scope this thing could go to. And like anything, it just needs people to see it and to be aware of it. I look at it as it fits in well with that kind of Globex data, who we love, is that it's once people kind of look at it and go, yeah, I want that. I need that. It just takes adoption. And that isn't as easy as it used to be 15 years ago. There's a billion different platforms and companies out there. It takes a bit of time for people to adopt. But once they do, I think they can see that it doesn't take even a massive adoption rate for this thing to do very well. And we're seeing Globex data do very well, but we're also seeing, Royal Winds do very well in the last few weeks as a stock, but with lots of news coming out as well. And I will be speaking with Peter Gaughan again, I believe, on Friday night. He lives in Australia, so it's a bit tough to do interviews. Yeah, but we'll have one out for next week, regardless.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually mentioned Globex data in there as well, because I'll throw a little news update about them as well. But just to cap off kind of what you're saying about Royal Winds, it's really exciting. It's going to take some acclimatization to the space and getting people to really understand how it works. But once you kind of wrap your head around that, the business model becomes very easy to understand, and the scalability is massive. And then just to make a quick point on Globex as well, for anyone interested, the CEO, Alangia, is going to be featured on Fox Business News Network tonight on their show, New to the Street. So that's tonight, I believe. Let me check the time for anyone who is interested. It is going to be at 10:30 Pacific tonight, so that's 8:30 Eastern time, and he'll be on the
Perfect.
Fox Business Network talking about Globex data, talking about Secure, and kind of laying out the story for especially U.S. investors. So that's really exciting to see.
That's really cool. And also, guys, reach out to us on email. That's probably the best bet if you want us to send you a link or send you anything on that.
Yes,
Do you
absolutely.
have the
We'll
link
be
there?
able to
Yeah.
send over the. I've got all the details, so feel free to reach
Awesome.
out to us, and we'll send it over to you.
Very good. Good stuff. So that's good news. And speaking of being on, kind of going live here, we also have Lakewood. So Lakewood has changed its name to Silverhammer. You mentioned that last week. What a great name. I love that too. It's powerful. It's definitely powerful. And Morgan is going to be live in less than an hour. So we have a link to that. So Morgan Lexstream over at Silverhammer, I wanted to call it Lakewood. Silverhammer is going to be doing a little presentation about their commencement of drilling and the progress on the exploration side. So happy to send you that link as well. So feel free to reach out to us as well.
And if you're on our mailing list, just to interject, Andrew, well, if you're on our mailing list, you've already gotten the link to it as well. So just check that email from last week. It'll take you right there, and you'll be able to check out kind of their update. I think they're going to talk about drilling commencement and the name change and how that benefits them. And I'll say it again, like I've said before, just a great looking logo. I love it.
It is. It's great. It's a very cool, fun look. But yeah, we think they're onto something. They've got a great model. Looking forward to catching up on that. And yeah, that's wonderful. So that kind of leads me into talking a bit more about mining here and energy. And this kind of makes people a little bit sad. But listen, we've said it for a long time. You have to be realistic about energy. And as much as we want this future clean, green, solutions we hear so much about in the West, we need to be reminded of where most of this energy is generated. And you can see the massive, increase in demand for coal, use of coal in China and other third world developing nations. And right now, the cost of coal is going through the roof as demand continues, and they keep on, they're making very positive statements on one side, saying, "Listen, we're not going to increase coal plant production overseas, but doesn't mean we're not going to import." So there's a surge in coal price as they continue to acquire energy. So this is the issue that is pretty obvious to anyone who actually looks at the markets, looks at data, is that you have to discern between the politics and the talking points, which are far from any kind of reality, and then what the real world is. And our need for energy is huge. We're not where we would all like to be. Like, even if you're the biggest battery fan, even if you're the biggest, electric future fan, and we're huge fans, we're not even remotely close to any kind of reality. And I don't even mean like the Greta Thunbergs of the world. That's fantasy land. I mean, of anybody realistically looking at this. So if you're looking at any world leader, we are not remotely close to that kind of statement, never mind the climate alarmist people. So we're on a good path. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of innovation. There's no reason why we can't step away from coal and use more natural gas, which is a lot cleaner. There's hydrogen solutions. Of course, we know a lot of the battery solutions as well that are coming out. But this requires people to be focused in on this market. And so we're getting there because we're seeing a lot of these news stories come out and be more in the mainstream news. And once they see how is this energy made and created, we can have an honest conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's the important key, is to have an honest conversation about it and say, yes, do we all want to get to this place where we have net zero emissions and all this great stuff that's going to be awesome for the environment? Absolutely. But that path to getting there, it's not a simple flip of a switch. I mean, there's a statistic, I wish I could remember it exactly off my head, but it's something close to this, within a couple percent of, if you had the entire Western world just stop using or non-renewable resources tomorrow, it would only decrease global emissions by like 20%.
Yeah.
So
It's
you're
not.
still talking about a massive scale that needs to be adjusted.
Yes, and this is the power of media, is that they put this fear onto individuals, and I assure you, you have no impact. The biggest problem in the West would be the U.S. government. They're the number one polluter.
Yeah.
So uh, that stuff you can go look up. We're happy to share that with you. You reach out to us. That fear to everyone, and until you see any marked change by their behavior, I assure you nothing's being done. There's no change. And I mean, I'm all for let's not use plastic straws. I think that's a nice step, but that also has almost no impact. And I don't mean to be a bummer, but it's a matter of people need to look at data and big data to realize who is impacting the greatest and how can we help them change. And I assure you, it might make you feel good to ride your bike here in Vancouver and not use a straw, but it absolutely it doesn't do anything. But anyways, good for you for if it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Andrew, I think I'm
there. I'm not sure if it's my sound or your sound that cut out. I think it might be yours. Yeah, I can see that you're muted there. Still can't hear you. Give us 1 second, guys, while we try to get Andrew back.
There we go. Oh, am I back? Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry. This is less of a talking point about what's actually being done, because there's lots being done. It's more a talk about media than anything else. So there's lots of great news happening. There's lots of companies making these innovations and changes, and it just takes a bit of work. You just have to dig a little bit and to find these alternative avenues that are talking about some of these amazing things that are happening in the world. And that's why, I mean, take politics out of things. The faster you leave mainstream news and leave it alone and go actually do a little bit of research, you'll find lots of gold out there about great things that are happening in the world, great innovation, great technology that's happening and changing. And that's the stuff, I'll never tell people what need to go do. But if you want to have a bit more bright spot in your life, go do a little bit of digging. And, and this is part of the critical reasoning that we teach a lot, is don't look at the first couple paid SEO searches that come. If you go look up Green Revolution, like that's one of the key things you could do if you want to know how to critically think and you want to know how to do research. Don't look at the first couple. You have to go look a little bit further down the line. And it takes a bit of time. If you're going to have to read the same type of article 4 or 5 times to get the truth as to what's really happening. But there's a lot of good happening. And I guess at the end of the day, what I'm saying is we're bombarded by a lot of negative daily, and that's on purpose. But there's so much good. And if we can focus our attention on that good, and that, yes, we're going to make it, then even when we see this China energy crunch and we see coal, it tells us where the real problems are. And that's fine. But you and me, we don't have any impact on China. And you that you should pay attention to this in China is also not useful and relevant. But it lets you know that that's where the real issues are. It's government, it's countries like China and the third world. If you're talking about environmental waste, degradation, that's who you're talking about. It isn't the West. It just simply isn't. So let's move on from that and jump into
I'll make one last point
on
that, Andrew. For anyone who's interested in cool solutions, you did a great update video on GMG that came out the other day. Encourage people to go check that out. It's a great video. GMG's doing phenomenal stuff over there. And it fits right into that theme of great solutions to the critical the critical problems of our generation. GMG's working to fix them, and they're doing awesome stuff.
They really are. And that's the small battery story right now, like a lot of wearables, like your watches, your phones, and all that, which is a huge, it's a huge market. I mean, everyone's got a smartphone now. But that's big data with those small sensors and small batteries are huge. They have massive success. It isn't a matter of their testing success. They've had massive success. They've been quiet for a little while because they just raised money, and people get concerned because they think, well, it's been quiet. The company hasn't had a lot of news flow. Takes a lot of work. They're building a factory. It's not small stuff, right? So these are the stories that we tend to like. it isn't that you're going to get the news tomorrow. It's that they take a long time, and even like GasX, if we're going to talk about energy as well, it's COVID. There's not a lot of people going back to work. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of concern, rightfully so. When you need a lot of workers to build a plant, to do this, to do that, it's a very challenging time. And I never make excuses for corporations ever, but this is a legit the legit concerns that I think people can agree that, yes, right now it's very challenging to get people to go back to work. And that's even here in the West, it would be very challenging to a place that doesn't even have I'm going to take a step back. We don't really have great healthcare here, to be perfectly honest. They're not admitting people to see. So, but in a challenging country, it's even more so. It's a lot tougher to get in and get any kind of treatment at all. So besides the point, let's jump into another quick story. And, it's once again, we can't not talk about it. We can't avoid it. It's something that's real. And you look at Venezuela, which used to be a wealthy country that was developing at a fast rate and has absolutely crumbled. They literally took 6 zeros off their currency, 2 days ago over the weekend here.
Yeah.
And listen, what do? I mean, this is the level of hyperinflation. When you're paying like $1 million for a loaf, or I can't remember what their currency is, but $1 million for a loaf of bread, it doesn't make any sense. So you go, let's take 6 zeros off. It's shocking what happens. This is what happens.
Yeah.
So this is what, I'll be just blunt. This is what happens when you go extreme socialist. This is the result.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you go with an extreme left viewpoint on everything. And I'm, once again, the biggest critic of the greed of capitalism as well.
Yeah.
But this is your future. If you're one of these people that's screaming for communism, this is what you can hope for. This is it.
Yeah.
So it's a terrible situation that's happening down there. And who knows what will happen as it continues to crumble. But I only put that out there because it shouldn't have to be said. It takes no effort to do research on communism and what that looks like, for people to understand that it's a total failure. But I also say, and I said it often, is that I don't mind the youth today who look at the push of and the basically the stealing of wealth from an entire middle and upper middle class being pushed into the 0.1%. It's not hard if you're a young person to look and go, this system's broken. It absolutely is. So I'm not going to defend what we currently have either, but it doesn't mean you go to the extreme other side hoping that that'll be better, because that is not the solution. And I just like to throw that out there because it shouldn't have to be said, but we live in a very
it's something important for people to pay attention to. That's really what it is. And you notice, Venezuela, like you said, was a really strong up and coming country for a number of years. They had a great resource sector. Their economy was thriving, and you push too many policies that caused this hyperinflation that they saw, and this is the result that you're left with. So it's important for people to note what's going on that front and pay attention to it, and hopefully then be able to develop solutions for how you combat that if you end up running into a similar situation.
Yes. Good. All right. Well, is there any other questions or anything, other companies that we should touch on before? We'll be on tomorrow as well, but we just wanted to kind of give a quick update.
I think we hit everything we needed to this morning for the quick update. I don't see anything else that we'll press. We'll bring in some more stuff tomorrow morning, but that's everything I had, unless you had anything left there, Andrew.
No, that's great. Everyone enjoy your day, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Perfect. Take care.